Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. I've been doing the agency a little bit. Well, it's actually true that the rewards are not that great, and especially for veterans that have good money making activities in EVE Online, it's probably not worth the time. But at least CCP fixed the problem that you would just skip the two hardest quests, which were to do a signature in a Tech 3 ship and in, well, a Tech 3 cruiser, not even a Tech 3 ship, and in a battle cruiser. You know, those are so difficult to find that most people, I think, just skip those for 4 points. They changed that to kill a number of rats in a battle cruiser and in a Tech 3 ship. A lot easier to do. The disadvantage is now that almost all anomalies get done quite a lot by players, because that's just basically the easiest way to do that in high sec. You can just bring a battle cruiser or a Tech 3 cruiser in a Sanctuary Refuge, kill 10 rats and get those quests done as well. So I had to do quite a bit of flying in order to actually find some of these anomalies and get those quests done. And the hardest one has now basically become to find a signature to do, a combat signature to do in a ship. But I still find the easiest way to handle that to be go out there in like a Tech 3 cruise destroyer or something like that. That's really fast, and then you can also do some of the very easy things like Sancha, some of the pirate sites, hideouts and things like that, that basically no cruiser, battle cruiser or Tech 3 cruiser is going to be able to do. Just gives you a lot more options and a better chance to actually find a signature. We are here for the market, of course, and let me get ready for the timestamps, because we need those, of course. So that is that. And as always, we are going to start with plex at 205. There we go. And it's not good news for the people that want to plex their accounts. Plex are up and heading towards 3.25 million. Clearly seen on the chart here that yeah, it's still increasing quite substantially. CCP is holding a sale at the moment, 15% off for your subscription, so this may slow down a little bit, but the momentum is still pretty damn obvious, and I'm personally really surprised. We are talking May, June, July here, still a serious increase from 2.5 to almost 3.25 million. Those are normally the months where plex actually go down in price due to some lower activities, and right now they're still going up. So as we progress through this summer, I am personally starting to think that we may have like some small temporary dip, which would be a dip towards like 3, maybe 2.75 million. But that other than that, we are going to go straight up with plex up until the winter expansion. And after that, things may change a little bit, but not before we actually see another increase in price, I think. So plex, yeah, still more and more expensive, and it's just not stopping. We can take a quick look at the data of the sell and the buy orders. 3.2 million pretty much for the sellers in the player-owned trade hubs. 3.15 million for the buyers. Yeah, pretty close to one another. We have to go down quite a bit to almost 3.4 million for a plex in the Jita station, and the buyers there are also at 3.15 million. So basically, you know, there is quite a cheaper supply coming in the player-owned trade hubs. It is possible that they are basically taking over so much of that business that they are dictating the price more and more. But yeah, the general trend is pretty obvious. We are going up in the price of plex quite substantially. Next up, we'll take a look at the multiple pilot training certificate. So that one is coming back up in line towards the 1.4 billion. This is after a massive sale that happened, and they are currently selling for 1.4 million, a little bit above that, and the buyers are at 1.3 million. Someone indicated to me that it costs a little bit less than 500 plex to buy a multiple pilot training certificate. So as a result, this will be a little bit cheaper than the equivalent of 500 plex compared to plex prices. I didn't know that personally, so thank you very much for that information, and it will put things into perspective, because if it was 500 plex for a training certificate, we would of course expect these to be at more than 1.5 billion already. One thing to keep in mind, of course, this is a pretty small market. You can see the sell orders 1 up to 10, you have to go down quite a bit to find 20 of them, but the daily trade at the moment is maybe less than 50 units. Compare that to plex, of course, that are being sold in the many millions every single day. So next up we get the skill extractors. Of course, a chart that is very, very close to the plex chart, heading towards 380 million. 361 million in the trade hubs. If we go down towards plex, 381.4 million there, and the buyers are at 355, whether it's in the player trade hubs or in JITA. So quite expensive, and putting quite a bit of pressure, I think, on these skill injectors as well. The more you have to pay for the extractor, the more, of course, you need to apply that price cost on the skill injectors as well. So let's take a look at what those are doing. These are actually, we'll start with the large skill injectors, because they have been existing for quite a bit longer and they give a better picture. So these are indeed going up well above 750 million now, 775.5 million, 759 million for the buyers. Lots of activity again in the player owned trade hubs. In JITA they're going for 791 million, almost 800 million for the large skill injectors. And basically this, I think, is in large part the change to plex that make it look like it's really accessible. 3.2 million still doesn't look like a lot of ISK, and as a result there's just so much more ISK pouring into this market that prices are going up across the board. And I would not be surprised if this could start going up towards the 4 million, that will start playing with that, because even 4 million ISK is not that much, still very doable. And then a large skill injector, I mean, I'm afraid to say it, but I think it won't be all that long until we'll start seeing large scale injectors go to like 1 billion ISK and become a true like store of value. If I would be buying anything at the moment to basically safeguard ISK the value, I think it would be, well, not right now again because of the momentum that we've got going up, but on any dip I would probably be moving into some of those large scale injectors, because it has that double opportunity of plex prices increasing, these will go up. Any interest in skill points going up will do the exact same thing, and so these, I think, will become very interesting investments. And unfortunately that does mean that at some point I do see 1 billion ISK for a large scale injector in its future. It could be a longer time, but I think with inflation it's almost inevitable. Small skill injectors next here, pretty flat at around 160, yeah, 155 for the sellers, 150 million for the buyers. And of course this is a much newer item, and so this chart is not all that easy to put into perspective. But yeah, name of the game, plex going up substantially, and it's the divided by 500 makes this look like such a good price. I think part of this is going to start to calm down as people are putting up sell orders in the 500 plex region, but the cheapest one, you're just gonna keep nibbling at that, even if you don't make like 1 billion or 1.5 billion in a month, but you still want to at some point play a couple months for free, then you're just gonna keep nibbling at that, buying maybe 10, 20 at a time, and as a result, yeah, it increases demand and it increases prices, which have this looking like it's still pretty cheap, but it's actually extremely expensive plex at the moment, historically speaking. Let's move on to some minerals at 910. And let's take a look at those. The good news on all of this inflation, and we can close these now, is that some of our mineral prices are going up as well. Here is titanium definitely heading towards the 5.5 ISK mark on the chart, 5.57 for the sellers, buyers coming in at 5.38. So titanium is seemingly settling well above 5 ISK. We had a period of time here in February, March and April when that was not the case. That was quite a tricky time for miners, but as plex prices have gone up, it looks like inflation indeed is pushing a lot of other prices up as well, which of course means that people that are mining, I mean, percentage-wise, we're probably still losing out, but it's not as bad as it could be. And so titanium 550 is starting to be a somewhat okay price for titanium. We might want to start looking at some of those sources, but it's definitely a nice chart up here from almost 3.5 ISK to 5.5 ISK. Good news for some of the miners out there. Let's see if pyrite is following suit. That one is really not doing it. It's actually going down in price again towards 5 ISK, currently being sold for 554. That's the same as titanium, and that I think is an indication that this is an unnatural low for pyrite. There's basically still too many stocks bouncing out there, I suspect, and that is causing pyrite to become equivalent with titanium, which is completely illogical. Part of it may be that people are focusing so much on Mixelon sources that they're leaving titanium behind, that they're leaving feldspar behind, but I think at some point you're mining at least some of that, and that should push your titanium supplies well above pyrite. So on the one hand, this could be an investment opportunity. You could try to stock up on some of that cheap pyrite, but on the other hand, pretty much the only other explanation that I can think for this is that there are still massive stocks of pyrite out there that people are willing to dump at really low prices, and as a result it's going to be tricky to actually time the right time to maybe pick up some of that pyrite if it indeed starts to go up as titanium is starting to go up. After pyrite, we can check on a Mixelon. That one is holding steady between 65 and 70. So Mixelon is currently being sold for 68.57, and the buyers are at more than 65, 65.42. Not so bad. Definitely still the best high-sec mineral to focus on if you have that opportunity. And the fact that it's managing to hold strong here, maybe going up a little bit in 5-day moving average in the last few days, is a pretty good sign, I think, in general, that yeah, prices might be going up. The question is this on lower supply or general inflation? Probably, as always, a little bit of both of those, but for us high-sec miners, that should be a good news. Let's take a look at what Isogen is doing. Also not that great, still going down as well. Currently being sold for, yeah, this is one thing to note. I mean, it's been going on for quite a while, but Isogen used to cost quite a bit more than Mixelon, and at the moment Isogen is cheaper than Mixelon for 50 ISK, 48.23 even for the sellers, and the buyers are at 48.22. So we are probably going to start to hit rock bottom prices here. If you want to take that mineral gamble, I would look into Isogen and pyrite stocks, to be honest. Let's see if Noxium is managing to do anything. Nope, this one is also still having problems here at the tail end, heading back towards 340 ISK, 340 for the sellers, 336 for the buyers. Again, very narrow margin here though. So this is where the buyers and the sellers do meet on this downtrend. So I think we won't go that much lower anymore. And for the longer term, maybe this could be an okay investment, but it's true that it remains a pretty big gamble. We need some increased activity, some more mineral sinks for this to actually pay off in the longer term. And of course, a war may be exactly that, which is possible. A winter war over whether it is the moon changes or the the faction citadels that will replace the outpost. Those should be conflict drivers in nullsec, but it is of course always possible that that will be a dud as well. Who knows what diplomacy is doing behind the scenes at the moment in nullsec. It could be that people are already redistributing all of space there without us knowing, but hopefully we'll actually see some conflict out of that. And then Noxium, pyrite and Isogen stocks might be the ticket to look for. Moving on to the nullsec minerals, here we've got Zydrine also going up down in price pretty sharply, heading towards 1000 ISK, so some dumping may be going on here. 1024 ISK for the sellers of Zydrine, and the buyers coming in at 982 ISK here. Buying Zydrine for less than 1000 ISK, historically speaking, pretty damn good price. So again, especially if you're planning to manufacture some stuff, I think that this is an okay time to pick up some of that Zydrine on the buyer side of things for less than 1000. Megasite here also after increasing price a couple maybe 10 days ago or something like that towards 1340, is also going back down towards 1200 ISK. 1206 for the sellers, 1112 for the buyers. Pretty wide margin. Here again, you could look into buying some megasite. 1100. Let's see if I can show it on the chart here. Is definitely a pretty low range at the moment for the buyers. So that does show that there's a bit of a lack of demand at the moment, especially in the Nelsec minerals. Might have some influence on some of the other ones, but then it is weird that titanium is managing to go up like that and Mexalon is actually managing to stem that decrease in price. So I personally believe that most of these downtrends are still old stocks that are finding their way to the market. Lower summer activity is causing these to keep putting downward pressure on these prices, but at some point I do think that we'll get through that and that we'll see some increased prices across the board for miners. We still have more fight to check, also under pressure obviously coming from Nelsec. Less than 9,000 is as on average, 9,000 for the sellers, 8,728 for the buyers. Pretty low prices again for more fight. So the winners this week definitely titanium and the fact that Mexalon is stopping its descent. There we go. Moving on to some PI next. Let's look at those at 1615. There we go, looks good. So the general trend was that most of those were recovering from a pretty good April-May season after a pretty good summer and are now back on, I would say, close to average prices. Construction blocks here you can see on the chart 12,000 ISK, pretty much average, pretty much an okay price to still want to sell, but if you want to start building up stocks, I would definitely understand that as well. 12,200 for the sellers, 11,400 for the buyers. You can see that those buyers for less than 12,000 ISK, if you see where the charts come from here, 14, 15k, that's not so bad, right? You could try to make some investments in there. Still, potentially, of course, we could go lower, but it is entirely possible. I've been predicting that summer with the lower summer activity, but that PI is sometimes pretty easy to maintain, that we'll see more supply and less demand and we should see lower prices. It is possible though that these are the lower prices, especially here 11,400 for the buyers. It's not that bad and you could start making your investments, I think, if you want to, for construction blocks for instance. Consumer electronics next. That one actually still knew a triple peak here in June, a third one, which is a little bit counter to most of them, but we can see now that we're actually going down in price as well again. 14,300 for the sellers, still above average, I would say. 13,600 for the buyers, also still a little bit above average, but we had to give ground. And right here, I think you could still sell and I would not risk investing in that, but you can also see that this is a more volatile one with peaks up to 17,500 ISK. And so if you're feeling really risky, you could look into buying some consumer electronics as well. That is, if you're interpreting this part here to be the same as construction blocks and to be an actual bottom, which I'm personally not entirely sure, but we are starting to close in on August, and so the summer vibe should be here by now. Next up, we've got coolants, 12,000 ISK here, also clawing up a little bit. And so here, this 11,000 ISK is obviously been a trigger for the market to buy up. A lot of that coolant selling for 12,700, back a tiny bit above average. Buyers are at 12,000 ISK, which could be, again, the right time to move in. It's not the cheapest coolants overall, but on the chart, this actually looks like it might be the right time to buy, especially if you see it bounce back down towards 11,000 again. That's, I think, a no-brainer for coolants. Enriched uranium next, actually taking off a little bit, back to 17.5k. So I thought that this would have more momentum to keep going down here towards maybe 13, 14k at least, to be in line with consumer construction blocks, for instance, but doesn't always happen. And so enriched uranium here, July, August, working on another peak, 17,500 for the sellers, 17,000 for the first buyer as well, 16,350 for the others, but enriched uranium back well above average, back in sell order territory. Next up, we've got the integrity response drones, and after climbing in price for almost 2 weeks, I think, up to almost 2.8 million. It's actually finally starting to show the first signs of going back down in price. So Integrity Response Drone still selling for 2.8 million. The buyers are at 2.66 million. So a little bit of a gap starting to form there, and the average price, let's take a quick look at that, 2.69. This is an indication, in my opinion, that people are also selling straight to those buyers, and so this should put a little bit of downward pressure on the Integrity Response Drones. But again, what may be happening here is that the early July buy opportunity was the right opportunity. Unfortunately, for people that are looking to still invest in those things, I'm not looking to do massive investments, but I'm still looking to do some PI investments through this summer. For the structures, CCP came out with a new dev blog about the moon mining operations and things like that, and it's psychological, but it does work, right? It does have an impact on the market, and I think that that's part of the increased interest for getting prepared for the refineries, and as a result we'll see a bit more demand just because of that. So hopefully it's a bit of a flash in the pan, and we can go back down towards that 2.5 million as a buy opportunity. But yeah, we'll have to be very patient and keep a very close eye on it if we actually want to strike a deal there. Mechanical parts next, obviously coming close to 10k was a buy opportunity. We're actually going back up here a little bit, 12,700 for the sellers, 11,700 for the buyers here. You're a little bit late for the real buy opportunity, but if you want those mechanical parts for less than 12,000 ISK, I think that that could still turn out to be an okay thing to do. Oxygen next here, obviously going back towards 500 ISK, a little bit unexpected in my book. 490 for the sellers, 460 for the buyers. I'd seen so many peak here on this low time here that I actually thought that the oxygen supplies were okay at that price point, but it turns out that this was actually some pretty oversupplied situation and was an actual buy opportunity for oxygen at less than 400 ISK. We're now basically normalizing between 450 and 500, maybe overshooting by just a little bit, but overall oxygen is back in average territory price. Then robotics next. This one could be interesting. You can clearly see on the chart here that we're coming down from 120,000 ISK towards 100,000 ISK. And here again, 103,000 for the sellers, 97,000 for the buyers. So buyers are below 100,000 ISK, which used to be the average price, right? This used to be like a normal sell order price as well, 97, 98,000 ISK, and then the buyers would be a bit below that. But if you look at this chart and if you look at what's happening on some of the other ones, this could be the right time to jump in on some robotics for less than 100,000 ISK, because the potential is there for that to go back up. You know, 120, that's definitely not so bad if you can pick it up for less than 100,000 ISK. So for me personally, this is starting to look like this could be our summer opportunities here in robotics, in construction blocks. And so these are the things that you, I think, want to take a close eye on. Rocket fuel, I called that one a bit ago. I think I actually have a buy order that's going to probably get filled as prices go back up a little bit here. And so we have 11,349 for the sellers, 10,600 for the buyers. And if you look at this entire chart, the buyers are still below 11,000 ISK, and you can see that investors have started to make a move here. So this is probably going to be the buy opportunity for rocket fuels right here. But you're probably a little bit late. I actually put up a buy order, I think, on this downtrend right here. So it's probably been filled on the uptrend here. That's if you can gamble that something like that happening, it's the right thing to do. But here again, just look at these prices. We're probably talking a little bit below average price. Definitely your time to strike. Rocket fuel, I think you could still make a move on that. Next up, self-harmonizing power cores. As I've said, it's gonna be pretty tricky to find that buy opportunity in those advanced PI materials close to that are tied to structures, because, well, I think this is the dev block influence here. Back up in price towards 2.5 million, 2.45 million for the sellers, 2.36 million for the buyers, and 2 million is out of the picture for self-harmonizing power cores for now. So let's hope for another buy opportunity later on, but right now CCP basically put the new structures back into the general vibe of the market. Superconductors next. Let's take a look at those. Maybe up to chart a little bit, heading for 13,000 ISK at the moment. 13,000 for the sellers, 12,164 for the buyers. I think that the sellers are a little bit above average, but the buyers are at 12,000 ISK, close to the lower part of the chart. So again, if you can still make that investment right now, you're probably a little bit late, but you could still try a small one on that dip here. So this is what, whoops, let's see if I can pull this up a little bit. This is what just happened, and we're recovering from that, but this was a slight buy opportunity. And here you can see the average price is close to 12,000 ISK. That's where you could still pick up some cheaper superconductors. I'm not investing in that personally because I'm making a lot of those. Test cultures next, still under pressure. This is really an unusual one. I thought that maybe if it had some sign of the volatility that most of the other ones here had, then buying close to 7,500, you had plenty of opportunities for those, and that would have been a pretty good thing to do. But test curves is trying our patience basically. Buyers 7,500 ISK, sellers are at 7,900 ISK. Definitely pretty low prices here. 7,500. Let's see if I can, goddammit, show up on the chart here. Yeah, it is definitely pretty low. I have some test cautious investments already. Everything bought for less than 8,000 ISK, but it's pretty unusual. This one was a clear going down in price quite substantially, but now it's staying at that bottom, unlike most of the others. So again, if you don't have any, you could look into some test cautious as well. And finally, we've got the wetware mainframes going down in price a little bit at the tail end, but 2 million, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon anymore. 2.2 million for the sellers, almost 2.2 million for the buyers as well. Very narrow margin here, 2.15 million. Probably a buyer bottom here that is being formed for wetware mainframes. And again, that increased interest is pretty obviously shown on the chart here. So it's going to be tricky, but I do still think that with a close eye on the PI market and looking for the right buy opportunities from right now, I think you can find the right deals in this. And yeah, one thing maybe is that we have to temper our expectations when it comes to previous bottoms, other bottoms previously in the year and in our experience, and that maybe we just have to look at average prices as a possible bottom opportunity for this PI. It's tricky to find, but stuff here at the moment for rocket fuel still looks pretty interesting. Robotics looks pretty interesting, and which one was it? I think it's construction blocks looks decently good as well here. So that's my read on the PI market. I think I'm gonna try at least on a couple of those to pick up some stocks of that, and yeah, looks pretty good. I think, but the summer just not dipping as low as what I would personally have liked to see. Let's move on to Take One chips here at 28 minutes. Here we go. Again, too lazy to switch them out here. Sorry about that. Maybe at some point I should really try to do that. But if you want to like add one that you really think could be interesting or something like that, please feel free to do that. I added the Ferox on a request, for instance. So I wouldn't be against adding maybe 1 or 2 more ships in the Tech 1 ship market here. But here is the Abaddon. After reaching 200 million on a second increase in price here, we're actually going back down to 170 once again. So 178 for the sellers, 171 for the buyers. This is basically any increase in interest. We can see here that volumes did go up a little bit above average all of a sudden. Increases the price to 200 million because, well, nobody is going to sell 10, 20 Abaddons in a single sell order. People are coming in with maybe 1 or 2 ships at a time. As a result, the buying of 10, 20 ships extra is going to push the price back up. But what we can see from these decreased momentums is that the market fills those gaps very, very quickly. Any chance at a bit of a margin on a Tech 1 ship is being filled up very quickly. Next up here we get the Caracal. Tried to go up to 10 million but failing already, down to 9.4 million. Buyers are at 8 million for a Caracal. Definitely look for maybe this as a buy opportunity, but if you're in an alliance and you're interested in Caracal fleets, I think that you'll spot this and that you'll probably try to maybe make a move on that, because yeah, 294 of them at 9.7 million, for instance, is going to keep that oversupply situation alive, and the buyers 8 million, very cheap Caracals at the moment. Coveter next, staying pretty flat, just above 25 million, 26.4 for the sellers, 23.86 pretty much for the buyers, and it's a bit of a lack of supply here that is starting to form, so just a little bit of buying could push the price up all of a sudden, but again, we are talking just maybe 30-40 ships to be bought. Most of them are still in this trade range, just competing with each other very closely, and that market gets filled too quickly. There just isn't enough demand to say that, well, if it does happen, which it could happen on a couple of big buys of coveters for some reason, price could shoot up all of a sudden, but it's just going to get filled so quickly that you can't really say that as an investor or a manufacturer that this is an opportunity. Next up here we've got the Ferox, so that one is going up just a little bit, but still staying below 50 million apparently. 49.3 million for the sellers, 45 million for the buyers. Pretty cheap Feroxes at the moment as well. Next up here we got the Hurricane, after climbing up in price a little bit to 47.5 million, on its way back down towards 45 million. And 46.4 for the sellers, 43 million for the buyers, so that means that some people are buying from the sellers, of course, but some impatient people are also just straight up selling at 43 million to those buyers as well to get those average prices. The Maelstrom here starting to go up just a little bit, but at least it's not that violent anymore, so that's because of the low volumes, of course. Hurricane also not so violent, so I think that volumes are basically going down a bit here as well. And then the Ferox, that one here, a little bit of extra volume at the tail end could push us up just a touch, but it's really, if you're seeing these low volumes and then this increase in price, it's a matter of just a couple of ships that are doing this. You can see this also in these sell orders here. I mean, we're talking maybe 30 Maelstroms on the market in Jita at the moment for the sellers, 172.5 million, and the buyers are at 157 million. So yeah, a couple of buyers can actually push up that price quite a bit, up to 185 if you just feel like buying 12 Maelstroms or something like that. But it's going to take is maybe a dozen new Maelstroms to come to the market, which is very easy to do, to push that price back down. So it's just not a great time for the Tech 1 market at the moment. Demand is just too low. Here's the Megatron next, going down in price again towards 150 million, 156 for the sellers, 144 for the buyers. Again, not great. The Prophecy next, after showing a little bit of volatility with increased peaks up to 60 million, this is now basically being brought back down below 50 million on fresh supply since 87, so 87 days, 80 days here, 64 days at 58, but then look what's coming in. So that's the problem that I'm seeing, right? You can maybe buy your way up to 56 million on an opportunity, but then 51.4, 51, 50.8, 50.8, a little bit below that, and they keep coming in here, and as a result, yeah, you get these sharp drops again, including one of the increasing prices, or maybe this momentum here is overstated, probably due to some anomalous buy order or sell order that triggered somewhere. But we're back at prophecies below 50 million on average, 51 million for the sellers, 44.5 million for the buyers. Very cheap ships again. Scorpion next, going down in price after increasing up to 160. 160 is still very cheap historically speaking, but those are new peaks for the Scorpion market, and a little bit of increased volume here, but as you can see, it just takes a couple of people bringing them in. 163, 162, and then 152, 151.6, and all it takes is someone to close its to be willing to sell for just a tiny margin, just above maybe their production cost, and there you go, the rest is following suit. Another 10 of them come in, and this market is depressed once again. And finally we've got the Vexor as well, pretty flat, heading towards 10 million here. So sellers are at 10 million, buyers are at 9.4 million. Again, not that many Vexors on the market here. Doesn't take much to shoot up just a little bit, but it's so easy to produce, and the lack of demand is just keeping these prices from going anywhere. Quite unfortunate. Moving on to Tech 2 ships at 3440. Here we might see some volatility. The reason I would suspect then, if we do see something, is that bringing moon mining back to the forefront is of course going to put Tech 2 production in some people's minds, and that may get them to make a move on some of this. But here is the Aries here. Unfortunately, what we don't like to see is this pattern of very flat average prices. That does mean that there's a lot of oversupply and that people are just selling at that very same price. So Aries are being sold at 23.2 million. Buyers are at 20 million. Not so bad for the Aries, all right? 20 million on the chart. Are they at 20 million? Really? Yep, 20.1 million. So not bad. You could, I think, still look for buying some Aries at the moment. This is a clear sign that we are oversupplied as well. Claw next, up in price a little bit on volumes after reaching 20 million on average on the chart, back up to 23.4 million. Buyers are still at 20 million, so that is quite interesting, but someone came in and basically cleaned out a number of sell orders. So is this a sell opportunity already? I think it's too soon, but at least there is some volatility in the claw market, and basically someone prepared, right? Probably around 500 of them being bought here as an investment, I would suspect, at the right time as well. Chart at 20 million, probably picked up at least the first couple dozen at like 20 million itself. The Crow next, going down in price back to 22.5 million on the chart as well, so probably a bit of oversupply. 23.8, buyers 22.2 pretty much. Not that many buy orders, so again this does actually look to be an okay time if you want to risk a couple of buy orders. The Aries next, basically flat just below 50 million again, and going down on the median daily price. That is weird that we've got this 50 to 44.5 million on the daily average. 44.5 is what the buyers are at, so that's what's happening. Someone sold an Aries straight to a buy order, but I don't like this chart personally. Flycatcher next, a little bit of volatility here, went up to almost 80 million, going back down now towards 60 million. Buyers are at 56.5 million, sellers are at 61 million almost. We would like to see 50 million come in place for the buy orders. That's not going to happen all too soon, but yeah, buyers 55 million, pretty much in between. This on the chart could start to be interesting. So if this downtrend has any momentum, it could be interesting. And of course, being able to sell at 7 to 75 million would have been pretty good for the Flycatcher. So at least show some volatility. It's on its way down. Probably, in my opinion, still a little bit too early to start investing in that. I would like to see these 7 be gone. Then, yeah, absolutely go for some Flycatchers. The Heretic next, actually at a pretty high point here, 60 million, on its way back down to 55 million, 58.7 for the sellers, 52 for the buyers, which is around here on the charts. That's a tricky one, right? You can see that the potential for the Heretic to go even lower is there, but on the other hand, it's also close to the previous bottom. So, yeah, the Heretic coming off of a high point here. Next up, we've got the Hound dropping off again to 20 million. That is quite interesting. Also 3 data points right at the same place here. 19.8 million for the buyers, 20 million for the sellers. No margin whatsoever, but this is probably going to be your market bottom. So if you want a couple of cheap Hounds below 20 million, this is your time to look at this one. 19.9 million. You'll probably get a couple of those at least, and that's your opportunity, right? The chart looks pretty good as well, to be close to a trigger. So this looks like a right time to maybe try to pick up a couple of Hounds. This is still oversupplied, coming down to 20 million, and you're actually buying for less than that. Interesting. The Malediction doing something quite opposite, actually going up in price here. So we could have bought these easy for 23 million, currently being sold at 26.5 million. Again, it's a bit tricky to say that, yeah, this was a great opportunity. You could have made money on this trade. Buyers are still at 22 million. The oversupply situation is really huge, hundreds of them coming in here. So it's tricky, but notice this oversupply here. And then if we can find these low enough, like close to the 22.5 million mark, this probably would be a right time to try and pick a couple up here. Although I personally don't like the Malediction chart all that much, it just lacks that real volatility that the Hound sometimes has, and that you can see in the Aries here as well. Same with the Claw. You know, the Malediction just, yeah, quite a bit more stable here, and a bit more tricky, I think, to make ISK on. The Manticore next. Yeah, this buy opportunity was pretty cool, right? Go down to 22.5 million, so obvious as well. That was our time to pick some up here. Now we're in between the highs and the lows, so unfortunately I wouldn't make a move on the Manticore. Selling for 26 million, buyers are at 23 million. Nope, unfortunately. Nemesis also going up in price a little bit and not high enough to say that this was a sell opportunity, so that's again a no. 23.5 for the sellers, 21 for the buyers. Yeah, look for Nemesis below 20, I would say. Purifier actually going up in price towards 30 million. That's quite interesting. Not that long ago we could have bought them for 21. 29.5 million. So purifiers, you can definitely look to sell those this week if you manage to buy a couple on the cheap here. And then finally we've got the Saber, stable at 55 million, going down in price a bit at the tail end. Yeah, buying for less than 50 million. Again, I think that would not be a bad investment if you can pick up a Saber at 50 million. So for this week, I would say definitely sell your purifiers if you want to make some money on those. Saber still looks okay. I really like the Hound situation here. That one is pretty good, I think, to make some investments on. And a couple of these interceptors are still pretty good in the buyer territory, despite what the charts are actually showing here. So take two. I would say, if again you want to take that gamble on a possible impact with the moon mining changes, then look for some of those buy opportunities. And the Purifier at least showing that the market is alive. Some of the other ones as well. I think the Heretic, although that's a pretty prolonged sell opportunity, it was at least a sell opportunity. And then the Flycatcher showing at least some potential as well here, 80-60 million. That's not so bad, and actually going down in price. If this has any momentum and come close to this range on the chart, then I think Flycatcher could be next for some buying as well. Let's move on to Tech 3 ships at 42 minutes. Right. As always, we'll start with the destroyers. So Confessors being sold at 35 million at the moment. On the chart, you're paying a bit more than before, so your buy opportunity at 30 million is unfortunately over 35 million here. 37 million, 822 of them coming in. So that's a seller trying to, I think, dictate the price. But yeah, if you're feeling hungry, then you can buy almost 1,000 Confessors and push the chart up to 46.5 million as well. But I personally wouldn't risk that kind of investment. Next up here, we've got the Hecate. Let's see what that one is doing. The charts are, well, 40 million. Just two of those, then we're at 45 million. So the Hecate actually a slight sell opportunity, especially for those buy orders at 30 million, of course. Basically emptying out of those on the sell orders. Interesting, quite interesting in my opinion. So Hecate, if you have some of those, then feel free to sell them. The Jackdaw coming off of a high up to 50 million, even more, 55 million. Still selling for 51.5 million, and the buyers are at 45 million here as well. And not that long ago, again, you could have picked those up at 30 million. Awesome little opportunity again to sell. And finally, we've got this Vapul that is just not doing those swings, still stuck at 35 million for the sellers, 33 million for the buyers. So some of the real winners here, Jackdaw and Hecate, I think, because they are being sold at the moment for 40 million. Not so bad, not so bad, but especially the Jackdaw, that is pretty crazy on the chart here. let's take a look at the cruisers next. So the Legion having to give back quite a bit of ground after reaching almost 200 million on the day. 144.7 million, 132 million for the buyers. So you are paying a bit of a premium, but it's not by that much anymore. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking. Oh, you're actually going to get that video next week. But when it comes to the moon mineral changes, this is an aspect of CCP changing things in the game. There is this market hype that happens as well. And so here for the Legion, if you don't want to spend dozens of billions on this, but you're looking to really take a bit of high profit, then don't go overboard with the volumes. But notice that there is this massive overreaction. If you could have sold some Legions for 180 to 200 million, that would have been so much ISK compared to your buy orders. You're not gonna do that with 100 of them, of course, but yeah, this is basically something to keep in mind. I think when it comes to the moon minerals as well, that CCP changing things puts the market in a frenzy, and it tends to yeah, sometimes have those flash in the pan events, which I would say here for the Legion is definitely the case. 200 million, it was completely unsustainable, but for a while the market was actually willing to pay that for a Legion, and as a result now we are crashing down quite substantially. But you had this insane opportunity to make some money on just a couple of your buys here. Same with the Loki as well, of course, went up to 230 million, currently 195 million. Still a very, very expensive price. This was definitely the winner of the Tech 3 ships. Buyers are at 151, so I do think that those sellers are going to drop off even further. Next up, we've got the Proteus. That one looks the most like a flash in the pan, because here we've got 110 million, and then we went down as low as 130 million again. So we're recovering a little bit from that, but 138 million and 127 for the buyers. Not that great a price for the Proteus, especially if you compare it to like the Loki. And then finally we've got the Tengu, same thing, double step up to 160 million, but have to give that back to 130 here, currently being sold for 145 million. So the Tengu did go up in price, and 133 for the buyers. Again, pretty wide margin, and I would say that, yeah, this is something to keep in mind. Maybe it's gonna be different for moon minerals, because of course it's actually a material that is massive in volumes, and doesn't have those base prices of like 110 million to bounce off of. But yeah, this is what happens when CCP changes things to the game. The market can sometimes also overhype things, overshoot things by quite a bit, and those are opportunities for, don't go crazy with the volumes, but you can make insane money on some of the correct buys here. So that is actually, in my opinion, pretty important, and something to keep in mind when it comes to your speculations on what's gonna happen in the moon market when CCP makes that an active activity. And for the extra product this week, 4720. Yep. Okay. Someone requested the Antipharmakom boosters, so we're definitely gonna take a look at that. I always like it when you guys give me suggestions like that. So Antipharmakom, I looked it up not that long ago. Here are the Antipharmakom boosters, and look at that. So started out at maybe 1 million ISK, currently 7.3 million ISK. That's quite a jump in price, and it's the same across the board here. Here are the Antipharmakom Lokaira, Kosibo, Tureo, and Taxat. I think it's pretty obvious here, jumping from a little bit above 1 million and currently being sold for 8 million, 7 million, another 7 million, and again and again. So 5, 6, 7 times the price all of a sudden. I don't know what happened here, so feel free to post that in the comments if you know what changed in these boosters to make them that much more expensive all of a sudden. But this again is a CCP intervention, and I think it could be interesting if in a couple of weeks we check these again, and if you see if this was overhyped as well, if this is again the market saying, whoa, this has changed, we gotta move in on this, hype the price up to 7 million, but maybe 3 to 4 million is the actual sustainable price despite the changes. And we can also see that a year ago we were at 4 million, so it's not like 1 million has always been the price, and this is a complete change. But I wonder what happened here. Very good suggestion, of course. Something like that is always quite interesting. So if you know what happened to these Antipharmakom boosters, feel free to post that in the comments. I would be very interested to know what actually happens. And I think that in like 2 weeks or so, if we check these again, I will be very interested to see if this is actually again what I would call a flash in the pan, just like some of the Tech 3 cruisers as well, going up to 200 million, but having to give 60-70% of those gains back all of a sudden. Those are actually opportunities when you don't want to risk huge investments, when you don't want to go crazy on the volumes and things like that. But that's where you can get crazy returns on that ISK. And this was probably one of those as well, because yeah, 7 times the price. If you bought like 100 million of those and now you're sitting at 700 million, not so bad, I would say. So there you go, guys. Incredibly good and interesting suggestion. I'm really curious to know what actually happened here. And that's gonna be it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And as always, I'll see you next time.